A while back, I had a client of mine who had gone to a family get together. It was right around Thanksgiving time. And she was just kind of casually talking with, different people in her family, just like we all do. And at some point, she had mentioned that she was going to be retiring at the end of the year. And I don't know how she said this next part exactly, but she basically said something to the effect of that she was really happy that everything had worked out, super well financially. And I think she even mentioned that things had worked out even better than she had actually expected. Fast forward, about 6 months later, she ends up getting a call from her son, and he was asking for $40,000. Now, we don't know for sure, obviously, if the reason that he had called at this point was because of what she had said on that Thanksgiving day, or if it was maybe something else she had mentioned along the way, or maybe it was none of that. We don't know for sure. But let's say that it was. If it was, what could seem like just a harmless comment at the time could really end up changing the family dynamics. Because for her, she didn't want to say yes to him, but she didn't know how to say no. And so she had called me after, her son had called her, and we were having this discussion. And so, and that kind of leads into what I really want to talk about here today, because, if you think about this for a second, if you have two different retirees, let's say they're both are in the same stage of life, maybe both have like over $2 million. So they're doing good. One talks, very openly about their situation, or maybe even semi-openly about their situation. But the other one keeps things very private. In a few years, that one person or that one couple perhaps could be feeling a very different set of pressures. And we're going to talk about those things here today. And of course, none of this has to do with markets or taxes or investment returns or any of that. I'm not going to talk about any of those things here today. And instead, I'm going to focus on this side of retirement planning that almost nobody talks about. It's what happens after people know how much money you have. And I can tell you over the years, after working with a lot of people and seeing all the different dynamics or family dynamics and things that happen when it comes to money. People that got along really well, all of a sudden when money got into the equation, things kind of changed. They kind of shifted a little bit. And I've especially seen this like with inheritances received, where siblings beforehand got along great, and now all of a sudden decisions needed to be made, and one was the trustee and this and that, and there all kinds of issues could develop. So let's get into this. The thing is, I tend to see a few things happen when people become too open in retirement. So exploitation risk is one. Relation dynamics shift is another one. And also, as I mentioned, that pressure from this, it can start affecting the retirement plan itself. And the important thing here is that these things don't stay isolated. They start compounding on top of each other over time. And so let's jump in. The first thing I want to talk about is what I refer to as the scam or exploitation side. Now, we're all familiar with scams, right? When we think of scams, oftentimes we think of like scam phone calls or phishing emails or phishing text messages now, or fake investments and things like that. The other thing we tend to think about is, this is coming from a stranger, someone we don't know. But the reality is so often these different types of scams are actually done by people that are close to us. It could be a family member, could be acquaintances, could be caregivers, it could be a friend of a friend, or maybe just someone who indirectly has heard about your money. And I was doing a little research, and I had found that elder financial fraud is the fastest growing financial crime in the United States. And that Americans over 60 lost $7.7 billion in 2025. This is according to the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So pretty credible source. But whether that number is even accurate or not, the fact of the matter is that the number is high. And in fact, I think the number is even higher than that 7.7 billion, because so often these types of crimes don't get reported because people trusted the person that was involved. And so, for whatever reason, maybe it is that, they know that person personally and they don't want to, take it beyond, kind of what already happened, or maybe they're just embarrassed about it and just want to move on. But for whatever reason, so often these crimes don't get reported. Now, I do want to be clear about one thing here, and that is that most people in your life would never do anything wrong. So it's not like I'm saying you can't trust anybody. In fact, most people that you think you can trust, almost all of them probably, you probably could trust. But what I am saying is that you only need one. It's that one bad apple. And the more people that know the specifics of what you have, the greater the chances that it eventually reaches someone who does see an opportunity. It's really not about paranoia. It's just about understanding that money changes how some people see you. And I can tell you, after working with a lot of people over the years, as it relates to money and seeing the different family dynamics and things that come up as it relates to money, people that got along great until there was money involved. Maybe it was siblings that inherited some money from their parents. They got along great before, but now all of a sudden, they're not getting along so great. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with situations like this, maybe even in your own family. But I know that's inheritance. I'm just giving that one as an example. But honestly, this usually isn't even the hardest part. So I want to get into what I refer to as the relationship shift. So this one, it usually doesn't feel negative at first. It just kind of quietly changes money conversations over time. Because as I kind of mentioned, once people know the number, the dynamic can shift. Expectations subtly shift. And emotional pressures can shift. So as an example, let's say your child, maybe they've never bought a home for you before, and they're coming to you, they're looking for help with a down payment on the home. They may be doing that, not coming to you thinking that they're really, thinking this is going to be a big burden. They may be coming to you thinking that, this is only just a small sliver of what you have. So, this is not really a huge deal for you. So you can just kind of help me out, kind of a thing. Or maybe a better example, I don't know, it might be, let's say a sibling of yours. Maybe you've done pretty well financially, but maybe your brother or sister hasn't done as well. Maybe they have some debt. Maybe it's nothing huge. Maybe they have $5,000 or $10,000 of credit card debt, or maybe it's 20, or maybe it's 50. I mean, whatever the number is, but they may just be coming to you thinking that, you could help them out because, it'd be a big deal for them, not a big deal for you. It's, again, only a small sliver of maybe of what you have. Another thing that comes up too is sometimes maybe a friend suggests, a more expensive type of vacation or something like that. The thing is here is that none of these people are necessarily wrong for thinking this way. But again, it just kind of, the dynamics just kind of shift when the number is known. The thing is here is that you stop being asked only on need, and now you're also being asked based on what people think you can afford. So you're no longer now just deciding whether to help, but you're also now deciding what saying no means. And this can be hard, especially for some people more than others, to say no to especially family or close family. Now, there's another side to this that people don't expect. Once someone hears your number, then suddenly, people start to have opinions. Not everybody, but some people certainly start to have opinions, right? Is it enough? What about inflation? Are you sure you're really ready? What are you going to do all day? You sure, if you retire, are you sure this is the right decision? You have all these people kind of second guessing perhaps what you're looking to do. And most of the time, those questions sound like like a concern. Like they can just kind of come up naturally in conversation. But oftentimes they're really coming from a place, I find, where it's that person's own fears about their money and their retirement. And they're kind of, I can't think of the right word. They're kind of, looking at that on you, right? Like they're reflecting that. Maybe that's the right word, reflecting that on you. And, a stranger's skepticism is it's easy to ignore, right? People you don't know or don't respect or what have you. I mean, what they say, that doesn't necessarily carry a lot of weight, or probably shouldn't in a lot of cases. But a brother's, or maybe a close friend, somebody like that that's saying those things, that can land differently, that can feel differently, and that can have an effect on you, which may not be a good thing. Sometimes, one conversation can quietly shake confidence in a decision that was really already solid. I mean, you might have already felt really good, let's say, about retiring, but now all of a sudden you've got, a brother or a sister or somebody else saying some things, and now you're feeling, oh geez, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. Or now when you retire, now you're uncomfortable, and now you don't feel the confidence to spend your hard-earned money, or whatever it is. I've seen all these different dynamics over time. Now, I want to mention something else here when it comes to adult children. And this is important because I've seen this quite often over the years. Just kind of by human nature, a lot of us will just kind of naturally adjust our behavior around perceived safety nets. So if an adult child knows they're getting a specific inheritance, or if they think they're getting a specific inheritance, they may save a little less aggressively, right? They may, instead of max funding their 401k, they may only save a little bit, that sort of thing, because they may be mentally, just kind of counting on that inheritance then in the future. And, the thing is it's not, malicious. I mean, it's just kind of, again, human nature. But once this expectation exists, it can then subtly change behavior over time. And this is where it starts becoming a retirement planning issue, not just a relationship issue. You see, every retirement plan is built around assumptions, right? How much you can spend, how much you can gift, what's travel costs going to look like? Are you going to Europe every year? Or are you going just, little road trips here and there? What's healthcare going to cost? What kind of legacy goals do you have? What kind of flexibility do you want built into your plan, right? All of these things are important. And then if you provide one-time help, that's usually not going to be an issue. The problem, though, is that when that occasional help just kind of slowly becomes expected, it's that one gift that then becomes reoccurring. It's like, oh, you did it once, you can do it again. You could do that every year, kind of a thing. It's that subtle ongoing pressure. The thing here is that no single request in itself feels, really unreasonable. It's just kind of, it's more of an issue that the things just kind of start stacking on top of each other and they add up. And here's the thing too, is that oftentimes I find that retirement plans rarely fail all at once. Instead, they just kind of drift. Vague wealth creates vague expectations from people. But exact numbers, this can create exact expectations. And so when the relationship pressure and the financial pressure start happening together, well, that's when plans quietly stop looking like what you had actually originally built. Now, I'm not saying here that nobody needs to know your numbers. Some people actually do, but the reality is that list is likely a lot shorter than you probably think. Who needs to be on that list? Certainly your spouse, your financial planner, your estate attorney, a designated POA, power of attorney, right? A trusted decision maker, and possibly also one involved adult child if there's, you got some formality around that. There's a difference between people that you trust and people that actually need to know the numbers. And those are not the same. They are not the same list at all. I mean, most people can know that you're doing okay financially without actually knowing what your balances look like. So I recommend talk about what you have in terms of generosity, legacy, helping family, what your values are, that sort of thing. Don't talk in terms of exact balances and timelines and inheritance numbers and all of that. So as an example, say something like, we want to be able to help when it really matters, because saying something like that is very different than saying something like, these are our exact numbers, this is what we're doing, that sort of thing. Again, you don't need to share all this with all these other people. So some things that you should do, some practical protections, if you will. First off is having that trusted contact, that POA, the power of attorney. Somebody that you trust that can help with that account monitoring or other things like that. Because, this is important, especially before any cognitive issues might develop, perhaps later on in life or whenever that could potentially happen. None of these things are really extreme measures. These are just things that need to be planned out, especially for anybody that has significant assets. The problem that I find is that a lot of people wait too long. But you want to make sure without sharing specific numbers that you talk about what your wishes are. You talk about your intentions and your values and what matters most to you and who you want cared for and all of these things. Those conversations usually go better than people expect. It's when conversations turn into those exact numbers and those expectations that things usually start to become more complicated. Now, as I already mentioned, this really isn't about secrecy or paranoia. It's really just about protecting your relationships and your flexibility. And also, quite frankly, the retirement that you spend decades building. This is your retirement. And what I can tell you is that the people that I have found over the years that really execute their retirement plans most successfully are often the people that keep their numbers more or less to themselves. Again, they share them with the people that are needed, that short list, that I talked about earlier, but that's about it. And again, it's not because they're hiding who they are. It's really just because they understand that trust and need are not always the same thing at all. And so, if you're approaching retirement and if you have significant assets, whatever that might be, and if you haven't really thought through the disclosure side of retirement planning, this is something that I help clients through. It's just a piece of what I do, but it is a component. Now, not everyone needs help with this, I find, but if you're realizing while watching this that, some of these dynamics may already be starting for you, well, it's worth thinking through carefully before these things later on start becoming harder to unwind. And so I want to thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.